beginning of time, man has left his mark graphically. First with paint, and then with ink.
Landa, it is my great honor and privilege to welcome you here this afternoon. Many of us have met before at DRUPA, perhaps DRUPA 95 or DRUPA 2000 or IPEX 1993, where I had the privilege of launching Indigo's groundbreaking digital offset color printing press and the opportunity to share our vision for the future of this industry. And I'm privileged to be able to do that with you again today. Ladies and gentlemen, many of you have heard me say in the past that everything that can become digital will become digital. Printing is no exception. So how has printing become digital? Well, certainly there are many products that have become predominantly digital. Photo albums, short-run label printing, trans-promotional printing, practically entirely digital. And of course, in the past 19 years since we launched it in 1993, the digital printing industry has grown dramatically, printing now 1 trillion pages a year, all digital. However, it barely nibbles around the edges of mainstream printing, which is 50 trillion pages, so only 2% of all the pages are printed digitally. That's why we developed a new category of printing, nanography. Nanography is intended and targeted at mainstream printing. Here in this presentation, we would like you to give you some insights as to what nanography is and what it means. Let's start with nanography. Clearly the name comes from nanotechnology. What is nanotechnology? It's the science of very, very small particles. So to give you some idea of what 1 nanometer is, look at this golf ball. If it were 1 nanometer in diameter, a single human hair would be 4.2 kilometers in diameter. That means 3 times the size of the DRUPA message, 3 times the diameter of the DRUPA message. Now, when you make particles very small in the nanometer range, they acquire extraordinary attributes. Metals, for example, get very low melting temperatures. Other materials become very hard and become very abrasion resistant. Other materials become easily absorbed in the bloodstream and open up opportunities for new kinds of drug delivery systems. And what we've discovered at Landa these past 10 years is that when you make pigments in this nanometer size range, they become extraordinarily powerful absorbers of light. And these pigments are the basis of nanoink. And that gives our process, nanography, the following extraordinary, almost unbelievable characteristics. And it's a long list. It includes very high speed, the broadest color gamut in the industry, high optical density, the sharpest dots and hardest edges of any printing process, very high gloss and gloss uniformity, the ability to print on virtually any paper, coated or uncoated without any kind of treatment, and any kind of plastic packaging film, tough abrasion-resistant images, scratch resistance, the lowest cost per page of any digital printing process, the smallest footprint, low energy consumption, and perhaps the one I'm most proud of, a 100% green printing process. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a closer look at nanography. I welcome you to the wonderful world of nano. So, ladies and gentlemen, I again ask you, what does this mean for the future of printing, and what does this mean for your future? Well, some of you in this audience are in packaging. So, your future already looks pretty good, because after all, As long as mankind needs to eat food, it will come in beautifully packaged containers. And so, as we've seen in recent years, packaging continues to flourish, and it will continue to flourish for a very, very long time. It is unlikely to be replaced by some kind of digital media. But what about commercial printing? Commercial printing, after all, is primarily communication. It's brochures, magazines, newspapers, sell sheets, direct mail, communication. It is hard to imagine 100 years from now that our advanced society will be communicating by crushing trees and smearing them with pigment. It is clear eventually there will be digital media that will replace printed media. There's nothing more temporary than technology. Here today, obsolete tomorrow. Printed media will be no exception. The question we must ask ourselves is, when is this going to happen? Well, paper has been the medium of communication for mankind for 5,000 years. Printing for almost 600 years. It will take many, many decades before printed media is replaced by digital media. So for most of us in this room, in fact for everybody who's alive today, many, many decades is already over the horizon, far beyond what we need to really be worried about. However, the question really is, how do I prosper as the industry moves from mechanical printing through digital printing to the ultimate digital media? How can my business prosper? And you probably think I'm going to say, well, you should become a digital print shop. And you'd be wrong. That's not what I'm going to say. Not because digital print shops aren't doing very well, they're doing very well indeed. But because, for the most part, that is not the business you are in. The trick is to make money from the business you are already in. The business you're in is commercial printing with offset. Well, commercial printing with offset is a fantastic business for the very high, long run lengths. And we don't see on the horizon, pardon me, any digital technology that's going to challenge offset in the millions, hundreds of thousands, or even high tens of thousands of pages. But the problem with offset is because it requires printing plates and make-ready time, the shorter the run length, the more expensive it is to print, making offset not profitable down in the range where your customers are pushing you to shorter and shorter run lengths. That's where digital printing comes in, which is profitable from a run length of 1. However, its limitations, the current limitations of digital printing, speed, format size, and cost per page, make it not profitable when you get to longer run lengths. So there is an enormous gap, the profitability gap, where your customers want you to print and you can't afford to do it profitably. That's where Landa comes in. Nanographic printing enables you to move that crossover point well into the many thousands of B1 printed pages, making short runs profitable. These are the jobs you already do. You don't need to go out and invent digital applications, find new customers, find new jobs. This is the business you already have. That is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, that today we invite you after the show to visit our salespeople, and if there's a press that you see that you think is the right one for you, we invite you to sign a letter of intent. We'll ask you for a very modest deposit, a letter of intent which guarantees your place in line. I can tell you already, this is only the second day of the show, I can tell you already the demand is enormous. If you really want to save your place in line, then we invite you to sign a letter of intent. And why is it important to save your place in line? Because these presses are not going to be in the market for another year and a half or so. We will only start shipping at the end of next year. Now you look at these presses and you say to yourself, why? Why? I mean, they look beautiful, they're ready. No, they're not ready. They look beautiful, yes, they run beautifully. The print quality is good, but not perfect. The presses aren't perfectly reliable yet, they're not mature enough. So in this business, you have to have the highest quality, you have to have the highest reliability, you have to have presses that you can stand behind and work around the clock. And so we're doing this for you. Last time we ran out too quickly. I'm not going to do that again. We're doing this in order for the customers to be able to have the most reliable, high-quality machines, so you'll have to wait. However, you have to make a decision. Now we've done something else to help you make a decision. in order for you to make a decision that I'm going with the right technology, believe me, I know how hard it is. Most of your businesses, you're probably a family-owned business, relatively small. For you to buy a digital press, or any press for that matter, you perhaps have to mortgage your home, borrow money from your mother-in-law. You risk everything. You risk your livelihood. You risk perhaps your marriage by making this kind of decision. So to make this decision, you need two things to be absolutely clear. One, I'm making the decision betting on the right technology. And two, I'm going with the right partner. Now you already have, most commercial printers already have a partner they trust. They have their existing press vendor. Whether that press vendor is Heidelberg or Komori or Manroland, they're going with the right press vendor. And that is why, on the eve of DRUPA, we announced major strategic global alliances, global partnerships. Heidelberg and Komori and Manroland have all announced that they've embraced Landa nanography for their next generation of printing presses. We could have had a monopoly, of course, and said, oh, only Landa will sell. But then we would lose both things. For you to be convinced that this is the right technology, we need you to understand this is industry-wide adoption. Everyone is doing it. This is the direction. And the second, that the vendor of choice, the company you most want to work with and you trust, will have a Landa press available for you. So whether it's a Landa branded press or it's a co-branded press, Landa with one of our partners, you can rest assured that you are in good hands. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you now with three things. The first is, when you came in, you got a souvenir fake leather bag. Please don't forget it in the theater. Number two, what was the second thing I had to say? Oh yes, please don't leave before you see the message that I've prepared for you on the screen. The last thing, when you do leave the theater, I hope you leave saying to yourself, wow, I have seen the future, and it is worth waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much. Thank you.